Padmé Amidala's hands had been on her stomach for the entire hyperspace flight. Padmé Amidala's hands had been on her stomach since she left Coruscant. Padmé Amidala's hands had been on her stomach since Obi-Wan Kenobi walked into her bedroom and told her that Anakin had gone to the Jedi Temple and that the Chancellor had been arrested and that something was happening that Padmé did not understand. Padmé Amidala's hands had been on her stomach and the twins had been kicking since they learned their father was on a lava planet. Padmé did not know who to follow. Padmé did not know who to believe. Padmé did not know whether Yoda's voice over the holo had been real or whether the transmission had been intercepted by the same hands that had intercepted every transmission in the last 6 hours. Padmé did not know what was happening on Mustafar except that her husband was there. Padmé did not know what kind of man her husband was anymore. Padmé knew the man she had married at 14. Padmé did not know the man she had married at 22. Padmé did not know whether the man on Mustafar would still know her when she landed. Padmé's ship entered atmosphere. Padmé's hands were on her stomach. Padmé's hands were not on the controls. Padmé's ship was on autopilot because Padmé could not hold the controls anymore. Padmé's stomach was the only place her hands wanted to be because Padmé's stomach was where the two people her husband had not yet met were kicking, and the kicking meant the two people were alive, and the two people were alive because Padmé had chosen to keep them alive, and Padmé had chosen to come to a lava planet to find a man who had decided to stop breathing the same air Padmé was breathing. Padmé's ship landed. Padmé's ramp lowered. Padmé stepped out onto black rock. Padmé stepped out onto black rock, and black rock was the color of Anakin's helmet, and Padmé thought about that for a quarter of a second, and then Padmé stopped thinking about Anakin's helmet because Anakin was real, and Anakin was here, and Anakin had been chosen by Padmé before the twins were born, and the twins were an accident, and the accident had been Padmé's only real choice, and the choice had been a child, and the child was kicking. Padmé walked toward the conference hall. Padmé walked in the walk that Padmé had walked since she was 14. Padmé's walk had decided the Military Creation Act. Padmé's walk had decided the vote against the Emergency Powers Act. Padmé's walk had decided the protection of Naboo's refugee corridors during the Clone Wars. Padmé's walk was the walk of a woman who had been deciding things for 10 years and who was going to keep deciding things until the day Padmé decided to stop. Padmé walked into the conference hall. Anakin Skywalker was standing in the middle. Anakin Skywalker had his helmet somewhere. Anakin Skywalker had lightsabers that were not lit. Anakin Skywalker had his back to the door Padmé was walking through, and Anakin Skywalker had been standing with his back to Padmé for the last 20 minutes because Anakin Skywalker was looking at the dead bodies of the men Anakin Skywalker had cut down in the service of a man Anakin Skywalker had just learned did not want Padmé to survive this morning. Anakin's eyes were yellow. Anakin's eyes were the yellow of a man who had been told what to do for 10 years and who had finally decided that what he had been told to do was what he was going to do, and who had been doing what he had been told to do for the last 6 hours. Yellow. Padmé saw the yellow. Padmé saw the yellow because Padmé had been watching Anakin for 10 years, and Padmé knew what Anakin's eyes meant. Padmé had not seen yellow eyes on Anakin in 2 standard years, and the last time Padmé had seen yellow eyes on Anakin was on a transport ship in hyperspace, where Anakin had gripped Padmé's wrist too tightly, and Anakin had stared at her like he did not know who she was, and Anakin had not known who she was, and Padmé had been afraid, and the fear had been the kind of fear a wife has when the husband has not yet come back from the war, and Padmé has been waiting at the window for a ship to land, and the ship is landing, and the man is stepping off, and the man's face is not the face that left. Padmé saw the yellow. Padmé stopped. Padmé stopped 4 meters from Anakin. Padmé stopped because the mother's instinct in Padmé's body had been activated by the sight of yellow eyes on the father of her children, and the mother's instinct said stop, stop, stop 3 meters away, stop, and do not step closer. Meter. Anakin turned slowly. Anakin had heard Padmé's feet. Anakin had known it was Padmé because Padmé's walk had a sound. Padmé's walk had always had a sound. Padmé's walk clicked on tile. Padmé's walk clicked on marble. Padmé's walk was going to click on black volcanic rock, and the click was regular, and the click was lonely, and Anakin had been listening. Anakin's yellow eyes met Padmé's brown eyes. Anakin spoke. Anakin's voice was small. Anakin's voice was the small voice Anakin had when Anakin had been doing something Anakin did not want Padmé to see, and Padmé had seen it. You should not be here, Anakin said. Padme did not speak. Padme did not speak because Padme's hand was on her stomach, and Padme's hand was going to make a decision for Padme before Padme was ready to decide. Anakin repeated himself. Anakin repeated himself because Anakin's instinct said send Padme back. Anakin's instinct said send Padme back because Palpatine had told Anakin to send Padme back, and Palpatine had been the voice in Anakin's ear for 10 years, and Palpatine had been the voice in Anakin's ear for 10 years, and the voice had been telling Anakin that Padme was going to die if Padme stayed, and the voice had been telling Anakin to send Padme back, and Anakin was going to send Padme back. You should not be here, Anakin said, the second time. The second time with more pressure on the consonants. The second time in the voice Anakin had used to instruct clones and instruct officers and instruct his troops on Christopsis, and the pressure on the consonants was Anakin's pressure on the consonants, and Anakin's pressure on the consonants was the pressure of a man who was about to do what he had been told. Padme did not move. Padme's hand stayed on her stomach. Padme's hand stayed where it had been. Padme's hand has been where it had been since Coruscant. Anakin took one step forward. Anakin's right hand lifted. Anakin's right hand was the hand that had held a saber 6 hours ago. Anakin's right hand was the hand that had killed every separatist leader in this room. Anakin's right hand was the hand Palpatine had been telling Anakin to use. Padme's hand lifted from her stomach. Padme's hand moved from her stomach to the front of Anakin's chest. Padme's hand landed on Anakin's chest. Padme's hand on Anakin's chest stopped Anakin's hand in the air. Padme's hand on Anakin's chest was the hand of a wife who had touched Anakin's chest in 10,000 places over 10 years, and Padme's hand knew Anakin's chest, and Anakin's chest knew Padme's hand. Anakin stopped. Anakin's hand stopped. Anakin's hand was frozen in the air 2 inches from Padme's shoulder, and Anakin's hand did not continue, and Anakin's hand was frozen because Anakin's chest had been touched, and Anakin's chest had responded to Padme's touch the way Anakin's chest had always responded to Padme's touch, and Anakin's chest had responded the way the body of a husband responds when the wife's hand is on the chest, because the husband's chest is the place the wife goes when the husband is afraid. I am pregnant, Padme said. Anakin's body did not move. Anakin's eyes did not blink. Anakin's chest did not rise, and Anakin's chest did not fall. Anakin's body was suspended in the moment Padme had just spoken, and the moment Padme had just spoken was the moment that was going to decide what Anakin did next. Anakin's yellow eyes did not flicker. Anakin's yellow eyes did not look at Padme's stomach. Anakin's yellow eyes stayed on Padme's face because Anakin's yellow eyes had been told not to look at Padme's stomach because Palpatine had told Anakin that Padme's pregnancy was a lie and that Padme was lying and that Padme was going to use the pregnancy against Anakin. Palpatine had been telling Anakin this for 10 years. Palpatine had been telling Anakin that the wife was going to betray the husband. Palpatine had been telling Anakin that the pregnancy was a manipulation. Palpatine had been preparing Anakin for the moment when Padme would tell Anakin about the pregnancy, and Palpatine had been preparing Anakin to react to the moment with the hand that had been raised. Anakin's mouth did not move. Anakin's mouth was open, but Anakin's mouth was not producing words. I am pregnant, Padme said. The second time. The same words. The same exact words. Padme did not change a single syllable. Padme did not soften. Padme did not explain. Padme said the same words she had said the first time, and Padme was going to say the words again if she had to say them 10,000 times, because Padme was pregnant, and the pregnancy had been happening since before Padme had left Coruscant, and the pregnancy was the most true thing about Padme, and the most true thing about Anakin, and the most true thing about their marriage, and the most true thing about the two people who were going to need them to be the kind of parents who do not kill their children. Anakin's hand lowered. Anakin's hand lowered because Anakin's hand lowered every time Padme said something true. Anakin's hand lowered because Padme had been the source of Anakin's truth for 10 years, and Anakin's body knew that Padme was not lying about pregnancy the way Anakin's body knew that Padme was not lying about anything that came out of her mouth when her mouth was connected to her eyes. Anakin's hand fell to his side. Anakin's hand did not reach for Padme's throat. Anakin's hand did not reach for his belt. Anakin's hand fell to his side because Padme's hand had landed on Anakin's chest, and Padme's hand was keeping Anakin's hand honest. A second kick. The second kick came from inside Padme's stomach. The second kick was hard enough that Anakin felt Padme's stomach push out toward Anakin's chest because Anakin's chest was 2 inches from Padme's stomach, and Anakin's chest received the kick. Anakin's eyes widened. Anakin's yellow eyes widened. The yellow widened the way brown eyes widen when something has happened that the yellow did not predict. And something was the kick, and the kick was inside Padme, and the kick was the kick of a child that did not know what was happening in the conference hall, and that did not know that his father had yellow eyes, and that did not know his father was holding a saber 6 hours ago. What? Anakin said. Anakin's voice was small again. Anakin's voice was not Palpatine's voice. Anakin's voice was Anakin's voice. Anakin's voice was the small voice Anakin had when Anakin had been 12, and Anakin had asked Obi-Wan what the Force was, and Obi-Wan had told Anakin to feel what the Force was, and Anakin had felt it, and Anakin had been 8 years old, and Anakin had experienced his first bout of wonder. 2, Padme said. 2 syllables. 2 meaning the count. 2 meaning what was inside Padme's stomach. 2 meaning the pregnancy was not a single. 2 meaning twins. 2 meaning the thing Obi-Wan had known since Geonosis, and the thing Obi-Wan had been unable to tell Anakin because Obi-Wan had made a promise to Padme to keep the pregnancy a secret until Padme decided to tell Anakin herself, and Obi-Wan had kept the promise. And Obi-Wan had kept the promise even when keeping the promise had meant Obi-Wan watching Anakin fall without Obi-Wan telling Anakin what Obi-Wan had known. Padme did not explain further. Padme did not describe the pregnancy. Padme did not show Anakin the medical scans. Padme did not sit down. Padme did not ask for water. Padme did not soften the words. Padme said 2 and 2 was enough. 2 was enough because 2 meant Anakin had been right. 2 meant the fear Anakin had been carrying since Geonosis had been the right fear. 2 meant the children Anakin had been afraid of losing were already inside Padme. 2 meant Anakin had not been afraid of an empty threat. Anakin had been afraid of a real thing. Anakin had been afraid of losing real people. Anakin's eyes closed. Anakin closed his yellow eyes. Anakin closed his eyes deliberately the way a man closes his eyes when he is praying. Anakin had been praying for 10 years. Anakin had been praying to a voice that said the Force was on his side. Anakin had been praying to a voice that said his love was on his side. Anakin had been praying to a voice that said his wife was on his side. Anakin had been praying to a voice that said his children were on his side. Anakin had been praying to a voice that had lied to him about every single one of those things, and Anakin did not know yet that the voice had lied to him about every single one of those things, and Anakin had been praying to a lie. 9 to Odik. Anakin's hand came up to Padme's stomach. Anakin's hand came up slowly. Anakin's hand came up the way a man raises his hand when he is reaching for a child. Anakin's hand came up the way a hand reaches for a child that is not yet born, and that the man has not yet met, and that the man has been afraid of meeting because the man has been afraid the child would take his wife away. Anakin's hand landed on Padme's stomach. Anakin's hand was the hand that had killed 10 men. Anakin's hand was the hand that had been trained to be lethal. Anakin's hand had been the hand Palpatine had been waiting for. Anakin's hand had been the hand Palpatine had been waiting for to do the unspeakable thing that would have sealed Anakin's fate. Anakin's hand touched Padme's stomach, and Anakin's hand stayed there. Anakin's hand did not close into a fist. Anakin's hand did not press. Anakin's hand was open. Anakin's hand was open, and Anakin's hand was feeling the roundness of the body that contained 2 people Anakin would someday put on his shoulders. Yun 4. In the Romerp Fang. The third kick pushed against Anakin's palm. The third kick was hard enough, and the third kick was in a place, and the third kick was the kick of a child that did not know its father's hand was wet from killing, and that did not know its father's eyes were yellow, and that the only thing the third kick knew was that there was a hand on the surface of its mother's stomach, and the kick was going to the hand because the kick was the only way the kick could reach out. Anakin's hand stopped moving. Anakin's hand was on Padme's stomach, and Anakin's hand had received a kick from inside Padme's stomach. Anakin's hand had been killed, and Anakin's hand had been healed by the kick, and the kick was not a metaphor. The kick was a real kick from a real child inside a real stomach, in a real conference hall, on a real lava planet. Anakin opened his eyes. Anakin's eyes were not yellow. Anakin's eyes were brown. The brown was not the brown of an hour ago. The brown was not the same brown Obi-Wan had trained. The brown was a different brown. The brown was the brown of a man who had just been told the truth about the reason he had been afraid, and the truth about the reason he had been angry, and the truth about the reason he had been killing, and the truth about the reason he had been reaching for his wife's throat, and the truth about the reason he had been reaching for his wife's throat had been that he had been afraid of losing the very thing he had been trying to lose. I did not come here to betray you, Padme said. Padme's voice had dropped. Padme's voice was the voice Padme had used when the Emergency Powers Act had been passed, and Padme had come home to Anakin, and Padme had sat on the bed, and Padme had put her head on Anakin's shoulder, and Padme had said, I did not know it would be used like this, and Anakin had said I did not know either, and the two of them had held each other, and the holding had not been wrong. Padme did not say she had not known. Padme did not say she had been afraid. Padme did not say she had brought Obi-Wan. Padme said only the words she needed to say. Padme said the words Padme had been waiting to say since the day the doctor had given Padme the news in a private room in Theod Royal Medical Center, and Padme had put her hand on her stomach, and Padme had decided to keep the children alive. "The Chancellor told me," Anakin said. Anakin's voice was the small voice. "The Chancellor told me you were going to betray me. The Chancellor told me the children were not real. The Chancellor told me the children were a manipulation. The Chancellor told me your love was a trap. The Chancellor told me Obi-Wan trained you to betray me. The Chancellor told me Obi-Wan had sent you. The Chancellor told me Obi-Wan had sent you to be present when the Chancellor decided I had to be killed. The Chancellor told me Obi-Wan had sent you to spy. The Chancellor told me Obi-Wan had sent you to take my children." Padme's eyes filled. Padme's eyes filled because Padme had known. Padme had known since Naboo that Padme was not the manipulator the Chancellor was describing. Padme had known since Naboo because Padme had been 14 at Naboo. Padme had known since Naboo that the Chancellor's voice was patient with everyone else's betrayal and silent about his own. "He lies," Padme said. 3 words, the same 3 words Yoda had said to Mace Windu. The same 3 words Mace had not believed. Anakin's hand on Padme's stomach did not move. Anakin's hand stayed. Anakin's hand stayed because the children were inside the hand and the children were alive, and Anakin was not going to move his hand because moving his hand was going to be the same as killing the children. The ship entered atmosphere above them. The ship's entry was audible through the conference hall roof. The ship's entry was the same entry Padme's ship had made 10 minutes ago, and Padme had known what kind of ship the second entry was, and Padme had known because Padme had been a queen, and queens know which ships are diplomatic and which ships are not. This ship was not diplomatic. Obi-Wan was here. Padme turned to Anakin. "The ship landed," Padme said. "The ship is Obi-Wan's. Obi-Wan is the master you have known since you were 9. Obi-Wan has spent 13 years choosing you when no one else was choosing you. Obi-Wan is not the spy the Chancellor described. Obi-Wan is the man who read you the same 3 chapters of the same Jedi text when you were sick in the temple because the text was boring and he pretended the text was not boring because a master pretends for his apprentice. Obi-Wan is not the man Obi-Wan has been described as. Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan." Anakin's eyes went back to the door. Anakin's eyes went back to the door because the door was where the man who was not Obi-Wan was going to come through. The door was where the Chancellor's voice had been telling Anakin Obi-Wan was not. The door was where Anakin had been dreaming Obi-Wan would come through for the purpose of killing Anakin. Anakin had been dreaming this dream since the day Obi-Wan had first said Anakin had been advanced too much. Anakin had been dreaming this dream for 10 years, and Obi-Wan was walking through the door to confirm the dream. Trembling, Anakin's right hand rose. Anakin's right hand reached for his saber. Anakin's right hand reached for the saber he had been told to draw on Obi-Wan. Anakin's right hand reached for the saber Palpatine had been instructing Anakin to draw on Obi-Wan for the last 6 hours. Padme's hand caught Anakin's wrist. Padme's hand wrapped around Anakin's wrist the way a small hand wraps around the wrist of a much larger hand. Padme's hand is small. Padme's hand has been small since she was 14. Padme's hand has been small when she won votes against bigger senators, and Padme's small hand has decided empires. Pagumnamin's small hand held Anakin's large hand at the wrist. Padme's small hand held the wrist of a hand that had been told to draw a saber. Padme's small hand stayed. "Padme, you do not," Padme said. Anakin looked at Padme. Anakin's eyes were brown. Anakin's eyes were the brown of a man who was being told not to do the thing the man had been doing for 6 hours. Anakin's eyes were the brown of a man who was being told by his wife that the man walking through the door was not the enemy. Anakin's hand stopped. Anakin's wrist stopped. Anakin's wrist was held by Padme, and Padme's wrist held Anakin's wrist the way a mother holds the wrist of a son who is leaving the room. The ramp lower sounded. The ramp of the ship that had landed. The ramp lowered outside. The ramp lowered and Obi-Wan Kenobi stepped onto black volcanic rock, and Obi-Wan Kenobi walked toward the conference hall, and Obi-Wan Kenobi walked the way Obi-Wan Kenobi had walked on Geonosis, and Obi-Wan Kenobi walked the way Obi-Wan Kenobi had walked on every day Anakin had been in Obi-Wan's life, and Obi-Wan Kenobi walked because he had been walking toward Anakin for 13 years, and Obi-Wan Kenobi was not going to stop walking now. Obi-Wan's shadow crossed the threshold of the conference hall. Obi-Wan's shadow was the shadow of a man who had spent his entire adult life walking toward one apprentice. Obi-Wan's shadow fell across the dead bodies of the Separatist leaders, and Obi-Wan did not look down. Obi-Wan's eyes found Anakin. Obi-Wan's eyes found Anakin because Obi-Wan's eyes had been trained to find Anakin in rooms full of danger, and Obi-Wan's eyes had been the first thing that had found Anakin in the Jedi Temple when Anakin was 9 years old, and Obi-Wan's eyes were going to keep finding Anakin in rooms full of danger until Obi-Wan's eyes stopped working. Anakin looked at Obi-Wan. Anakin's eyes were brown. Anakin's wrist was held by Padme. Anakin's hand was not on his saber. Anakin was standing in the middle of a conference hall full of dead Separatist leaders, and Anakin's hand was not on his saber. Obi-Wan had been preparing his hand for 13 years to draw a saber on the apprentice Obi-Wan was meeting in a room full of dead bodies. Obi-Wan had been preparing his hand for 13 years to draw a saber in this exact configuration. Obi-Wan had been preparing his hand for 13 years to draw a saber in the exact configuration Obi-Wan was standing in right now. Obi-Wan had been preparing his hand for 13 years to draw a saber that would have ended Obi-Wan's life. Tuan did not draw the saber. Padme looked at Obi-Wan. Padme's hands were still on Anakin's wrist and Anakin's chest. Padme's hands were the most important two hands in the room. Padme's hands had been holding a man together for 10 minutes. Padme's hands had spent 10 minutes keeping Anakin from becoming Vader. Padme's hands had spent 10 minutes keeping Anakin from becoming the Empire. Padme's hands had spent 10 minutes keeping the twins alive. Padme spoke. He told me, Padme said. He told me about the Chancellor. He told me the Chancellor is the Sith. He told me before anyone else in the galaxy knew. He killed all of them for the Chancellor, and then he stopped listening to the Chancellor and he told me, he is your apprentice. He was always your apprentice. He has been your apprentice for 13 years, and he needs you to choose him now. Obi-Wan did not speak. Obi-Wan did not speak because Obi-Wan had been holding his saber hilt for the entire hyperspace flight, and Obi-Wan's hand was making the choice Obi-Wan's hand had been preparing to make for 13 years. Obi-Wan had been holding his saber hilt because Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt every day for 13 years, and Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt because Obi-Wan had been holding it back when Anakin had first fallen in love with Padme, and Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt when Anakin had been promoted too quickly, and Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt when Anakin had been told he was too attached, and Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt when Anakin's mother had died in Anakin's arms, and Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt through every day Anakin had grown, and Obi-Wan had been holding the saber hilt in his hand when Obi-Wan had first been told that Anakin Skywalker had gone to the Jedi Temple to tell Mace Windu what the Chancellor was. Obi-Wan's hand lifted. Obi-Wan's hand lifted away from the saber hilt. Obi-Wan's hand lifted away from the saber hilt, the way Padme's hand had lifted from her stomach, and Obi-Wan's hand was empty, and Obi-Wan's hand fell to Obi-Wan's side, and Obi-Wan's hand was at the side of a man who was not going to draw the saber. Anakin was looking at Obi-Wan. Anakin was looking at the man who had chosen Anakin at 9 years old. Anakin was looking at the man who had been choosing Anakin for 13 years, and Anakin was looking at the man who had been holding a saber hilt for 13 years, and Anakin was looking at the man who had just lifted his hand from the saber hilt. Obi-Wan spoke. I am here, Obi-Wan said. 3 words. The same 3 words Padme had said to Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan had arrived. The same 3 words. The 3 words Obi-Wan had said to Anakin 1,000 times after every nightmare Anakin had had in the temple. I am here. Anakin's knees buckled. Anakin's knees buckled, and Anakin did not fall because Obi-Wan caught Anakin. Obi-Wan caught Anakin the way Obi-Wan had been catching Anakin since Anakin was 9 years old, and Obi-Wan had caught Anakin the way Obi-Wan was always going to catch Anakin, and Obi-Wan caught Anakin because Obi-Wan's arms had been holding a saber hilt for 13 years, and Obi-Wan's arms had been preparing to do something Obi-Wan's arms had not been preparing to do, and Obi-Wan's arms had decided that Obi-Wan's arms were going to keep Anakin Skywalker alive today. Anakin fell into Obi-Wan's arms. Anakin's face was in Obi-Wan's chest, and Obi-Wan's arms were around Anakin, and Padme was standing 4 meters away, with both hands on her stomach, and Padme was watching a master hold an apprentice, and Padme was watching the Empire end, and Padme was watching the Empire end without a saber, and Padme was watching the Empire end because a woman had walked onto a lava planet first. The twins kicked. The twins kicked because the twins had been kicking for the entire flight from Coruscant, and the twins had been kicking because the twins had not known what was happening, and the twins had decided to kick as a vote, and the vote had been, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. The Empire ended on a lava planet in the middle of the night with 3 voices. The first voice was a man who had been told to kill his wife, and who had decided not to kill his wife because the wife had put her hand on his chest, and the wife had said 2 words, and the 2 words had been children, and the children had been real, and the children had been inside the wife, and the children had been kicking. The second voice was a woman who had walked onto the lava planet first because the woman had been raised to walk toward danger, and the woman had been pregnant, and the woman had decided to use her pregnancy as the tool that kept her husband alive. The third voice was a master who had spent 13 years holding a saber hilt and who had decided the saber hilt was not the answer because the boy in the master's arms had not yet been the man in the black armor, and the boy in the master's arms could be saved, and the boy in the master's arms was going to be saved today. A ship on the lava stood waiting for three. A ship on the lava was not a military ship. A ship on the lava was a diplomatic ship that had been carrying a pregnant senator and that was going to carry a pregnant senator and her husband's master to a planet no one was looking at yet because the planet was small and the planet was sand and the planet was the place where the boy's mother had been buried and the place was Tatooine. The diplomatic shuttle lifted. The diplomatic shuttle held three. The diplomatic shuttle held three. And a future that no one had predicted, and a future that no one had approved, and a future that was going to save the galaxy because the galaxy had been about to be lost to a man on a throne who had told everyone that the only way to keep what you love was to kill what you love, and that lie had just been broken on a lava planet by a woman who had decided that love was the opposite of what was being said. The Empire ended without a sound. The Empire ended with a faraway cry. The Empire ended with two small sounds inside a mother. The Empire ended because a mother arrived first.